Director of Common Sense Adoption Services. Welcome to our YouTube. And with me today is...
I'm Lori Teeter. I'm the Program Supervisor.
So this is the second video in a short series we're doing around the matching process and what happens once a family is approved to foster or adopt and we're looking to make a match. So this particular segment is on the foster care referral process and what that whole process looks like and how we make matches. So one of the tough things, Lori, and I think people struggle with this, is right now in Pennsylvania we're hearing numbers of about 17,000 children in the Commonwealth on any given day in the foster care system.
Those are children that are designated dependent within our system. Yes.
And so when we have waiting foster families who aren't getting placements quickly and they go, how is this possible? There's 17,000 children. Why aren't we getting a call? I think it's important to point out, of those 17,000, most of those kids are in a placement.
Yes.
They're in a home. It might be a foster home. It could be kinship, but they're already settled.
They're settled, yes.
So, we don't know actual numbers, but there might be on any given day, maybe across the Commonwealth, let's just say 1,000 children a day that county agencies, either they're new coming into the system, so they're looking for a placement, maybe an emergency placement, or they're in a placement, it's not working out for whatever reason, and the county's looking to move that child to another placement. So out of those 17,000, we're not talking 17,000 moving, needing homes every single day. So how many calls do you think we get in a week, just our agency, for foster placements?
Well, we provide services for foster care for several different agencies, children and youth agencies. So I would estimate on any given week, maybe 25 to 35 actual referrals for children.
Yeah. And most of those referrals are coming from our local counties. So we're in South Central Pennsylvania. We have a working relationship with about 7 local county agencies. And sometimes we get calls from the far reaches, Tioga County might call us. But usually we're working much more locally.
Yes.
And there's some good reasons for that.
Yes, working with agencies who are further away, even though they're still in Pennsylvania and we are licensed to serve those agencies, there's a lot of complexities and variables that make it challenging to serve children from those particular parts of the Commonwealth.
Yeah, so let's talk about what those complexities are, because when we get a referral, it doesn't necessarily give you the whole picture, but it's going to give you highlights, right? It's going to give you some basic information that we take a look at. And when we're looking at these referrals, what families are we looking at in terms of our pool of waiting families?
I start to screen referrals immediately, and one of the biggest variables initially is, when does this child or children, because sometimes it's more than one, when do they need place? Is it emergent, which means immediate? Is it in the next 30 days? Is it a planned permanency placement perhaps? So that's one of the most important factors. And where is this child coming from?
Right.
What is their origin currently? Are they in a foster home? Are they in a facility? Are they within our serving area? So those kinds of things are immediate screening. And we are looking at our pool of all waiting families.
Right. So we're not ranking people because, you've waited a really long time, so we're going to give you first dibs.
No.
Because that's not the criteria.
Agencies want us to send them our most suitable and prepared families for the referral. The other thing I think it's important to keep in mind is agencies, let's say Dauphin, Cumberland, the agencies that we primarily serve, they're also working with other providers, not just us.
Right. So when they're sending out that referral, they send it to all of the providers they work with.
Yes.
And that's important
Yes.
because they're casting a wide net.
Of course.
And so a big issue in making placements from foster care is distance.
Right.
Because there's a lot of things that we have to keep in mind
Sure.
with most foster youth. They're visiting typically with birth parents,
Yes.
maybe siblings who are in other placements.
Yes.
And so we might have a fantastic family
Yeah,
for this
sure.
child, but they live an hour away. And the logistics
Yes.
of doing, say, a twice a week visit, might not be a good match. I mean, that's one
Right.
consideration. School's another issue.
Yes.
School-age children, there's federal law that mandates that we keep kids in their school of origin. We try to minimize disruption with education. So again, we could have a fantastic family, but there's no way that we can safely keep that child in their home district.
Yes.
And without adding a 2-hour commute a day to school. So those are the things that suddenly our pool of maybe 10 waiting families dwindles down to 0 very quickly.
Exactly. And those agencies are relying on us to make those good decisions and present resources that are very viable, understanding all the variables.
All those variables.
Mhm.
And so we're not just looking at the needs of the children in that referral, we're also considering who our families are, the dynamics in each of those families. So, families have told us age ranges they're willing to consider, how many children they're willing to consider, some of the behavioral or special needs they're willing to consider. And then we're getting this referral that's laying out bits and pieces about a child, and we're trying to figure out where we match up best, right?
Even gender can play a role.
Yeah.
Because gender can impact bedroom space. Certain children can share a room, some cannot. So yes, there's a lot of variables.
And then there's also, it's not just what families are looking for. Counties are telling us things they
Yes.
want to see in a prospective family.
Yes.
Maybe a child should not be with other children,
Right.
or needs a 2-parent household, or maybe a single parent is better.
Yes.
Pets can be a big issue. That's one that, sometimes pets are great, other times they aren't comfortable placing a child in a home with pets.
Also culture.
Culture and race.
Culture, race, sometimes gender, sexual orientation as well. So there's a lot of complexities that go into deciding if a referral is what might be a good fit for some of our families.
So out of the 25 to 30 referrals that we see in a typical week, how many placements do we usually make?
It varies, but sometimes none.
Right.
And sometimes that's an important variable too, because we are focusing on best fit for these children, and we have to step up for agencies to ensure that these children are going to be appropriately cared for.
Right. So we're not just filling beds.
Right. We're not filling beds. Our families sometimes feel that might be the goal, but we're trying to make matches that are sustainable. So children have stability and consistency as much as we can provide it.
Right.
So I will say maybe one placement every few weeks. Sometimes it's a few. Sometimes it's sibling groups. Sometimes we can go a few months without having a new placement.
Yeah, so the referrals are there, but behind the scenes, what families don't always see or know is that we're combing through these referrals. And I know a lot of the referrals we get are for older teens.
Yes.
And we very rarely have maybe more than one family willing to consider older teens. And children often coming out of high-level treatment programs.
Yes.
We have these children with really significant behaviors. And not that we don't have families who are equipped for that, but again, it's all those factors. It's distance, it's, all the different component parts that we have to look at, and we can't call families about every single referral that we
Right.
see. You wouldn't like that. I mean, as a family, you don't really want to hear about every single child.
It's really
we
our
hear
job
about.
to sort through that.
Yeah, and that's part of, you know, in our last video, we talked about the trust and patience. You know, we want to make a really
Yes.
good fit. Because if we don't do our best as professionals to sort of sort through some of these referrals and make some executive decisions, we, you know, and we're just pushing kids into homes to fill beds, it's a disaster. I mean, when you don't try to make that best match that you can. But then the other thing that's a trick in all of this is very time sensitive.
It is time sensitive, and I think the other important piece is that our role for agencies, custodial agencies, is to provide resources.
Yes.
They are choosing our families.
Right.
So even if we have a few
Yeah.
good, solid resources that we think would be a good fit, that doesn't mean they'll get fit. Because other agencies might have other resources that seem to be a better fit.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to keep in mind our role is
Yes.
to provide resources.
Yes.
And that's why we recruit families and educate them and help them prepare.
And so if we think we have a possible fit, a possible match for a family, we're going to reach out to you and discuss with
Yes.
you that referral, and hopefully, you know, very quickly hear from you, especially
Yes.
if it's a time sensitive placement where we need to act fast. Hopefully we're going to hear from you very quickly so that we can kind of throw your hat in.
And that's an ongoing process.
Yes.
That's a learning process.
Yeah.
It continues. It's the journey. And sometimes some families learn with their no's. Sometimes they're surprised when they hear certain things about certain referrals
Right.
that maybe they aren't open to and they weren't even sure. Maybe they didn't think about certain things.
Right.
So sometimes it's good practice.
Yeah, it can
And,
be
and
good
that
practice.
dialogue between us as a team
Yeah.
is really, really important.
And so it's important to know that just because we present a referral to you, and we're going to talk about the saying yes or saying no in another video, but it's really important to know that when we present a referral to you, it's important that we hear from you in a very timely manner. Otherwise, you just might miss out if you don't respond
Right.
pretty quickly.
Right.
And just because you say yes doesn't mean you're going to get picked,
Right.
because there may be other families that have also said yes. And ultimately, like you've already said, that county agency, that provider, is the one who's going to make a decision
Right.
about where to place
Right.
a child or children. And we don't always hear back. I think that's the other
Right.
thing that's challenging. If we send some referrals, if we throw a few of our families into the mix as potential options, that very busy county agency may never
Yes.
circle back to us to say,
Absolutely.
"Oh, sorry, we didn't pick your family." So no news is sometimes that
Right.
we weren't picked, or something last minute happened. Grandma showed up at court
Absolutely.
and that child didn't even come into care.
Right.
But so again, you know, trust, patience, flexibility is a big part
Yeah.
of this, because it's just a lot of unknowns, a lot of uncertainty, and unpredictability. Because these referrals, we don't know. Like we could finish this video and you might have 15 today because
Exactly.
it's a busy day.
Right. Right.
So, well, thank you for joining us. I'm Erin Chick with Common Sense Adoption Services, and we'll see you in the next video.